Everybody, welcome into Going Public. I am Harry McCullough. We are joined today by David Rabelais, the Executive Director of the Terrebonne Port Commission, who, well, it's impressive enough title, but understand you're also going to be the Port Association of Louisiana President coming up for 2 years.
Yes, sir. In June, I'll take over, so I'm going to be spread thin, but it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah,
so.
No, that's great. It's you can spread influence across the whole
Absolutely.
state, right?
I plan on it.
What a time, though. I mean, when we're now talking about infrastructure, we're talking about Build Back Better, and all kind of things that are coming out of Washington D.C. It's a great time to have you in position to maybe affect some of that statewide.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do my best. I think it's good. I'm excited.
No, that's awesome. We've been talking. We're running down the Terrebonne Parish now 200 years.
Right.
Now. I remember the sesquicentennial when we were 150 when we were back in high school, but now it's 200, and so now we're
going to talk about this coming up. But yes,
right.
60 years.
60 years now for the Houma Navigational Canal.
Yes,
which was an incredible time, and the port is now 58 years old.
Yep.
So,
and look, no matter how hard I try, Harry, I'll never catch the parish. Okay. but yeah, it's 60 years, a little bit over 60 years since the channel was constructed, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. So what do we need to do? And you brought a nice little slide presentation too. So obviously we're talking a little bit of the history of the canal and
the movers and shakers that got it started. I mean, those guys.
What were they thinking? What were they thinking?
It's all about economy. I mean, this is all when we get to it, we'll show you the folks that got it started. But they had a vision, and they knew that if they got a straight shot to the Gulf of Mexico, the economics would be tremendous because of the oil and gas industry. So, before that, they had to go east or west and find an outlet, and it took forever. So this way they could come right in and out and a straight shot.
Yeah, and so, this had come on the heels of the Intracoastal Canal being dug that really opened up commerce like an interstate highway did for traffic across America.
That's right.
But this way they do the Intracoastal, it goes from east to west, comes through Houma, does a little dipsy-do as it does, but they saw an opportunity, hey,
take a straight shot off.
We can make a straight shot off of the Intracoastal and really capitalize.
That's right.
So let's get into the port and what's going on.
Yeah, so, thanks for having me. The maintenance dredging was completed in mid-March. So we got a full channel now. We just hope it doesn't silt in, but, it will, but we hope it stays for a while. Right now, we're working on a deepening study. We're locating and finding all these utilities that cross, and we're working with the Corps and the state to lower the utilities if we need to. So we got to do all of that ahead of the dredging. Our federal delegation managed to secure $350,000 for preliminary engineering for the Houma Navigation Canal deepening. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not, but it's huge because it opens the door for us. Now we have a placeholder in the budget of the president, and we're going to hopefully get funding as we need it to get the channel design. Okay, it's a huge milestone. The state legislature is just getting cranked up, so nothing to report on that yet, other than the redistricting veto issues and all of that. And so I thought we could slow down a little bit and just go through the history of the Houma Navigation Canal.
Yeah, because like I say, I grew up, born and raised here all my life. These are things I just did not know about. I didn't know why. Obviously, you could see the effect of it and what happened from it, but I didn't know. The builders and shakers are like, who thinks like that? Like, hey, maybe we can just cut really? Can we do that? And so, it was a different time. So yeah, let's take a look at some
let's go to the third slide. I think it says agency completed in 1962. There you go. All right. So here we go. So it was funded. And get this, it only cost $3.5 million, okay? And that's today we spend more than that in the last 10 miles every year dredging the maintenance. So it was funded $3.5 million, paid by the taxpayers of Terrebonne Parish, okay? So we got skin in the game. almost 100 local residents and businesses in Terrebonne donated almost $40,000 for the initial surveys and right-of-way acquisition. So, you know, all these other areas, these regions, they go to the state and they go to the federal government, they put their hands out for money. And they don't do anything else. We put skin in the game. We fund our stuff, and then we go back to them and ask them to help us, and it makes a big difference. That's the way you really should do it.
Yeah, that's what we did with our levees down here.
And so, exactly. So the Corps assumed the responsibility of the maintenance, and the hurricanes and tropical storms impact the HNC regardless of where they make landfall. Everybody needs to understand that. So the next slide. These are the guys that had the vision to deepen the channel. These were the movers and shakers. I want to call them out by name. I have their names here.
I love these names too, and you know these names.
I know M.L. Funderburk. Okay, he's standing. Well, now M.L. Funderburk seated in the center. Standing left to right is T. Baker Smith.
Yeah,
okay,
heard that name.
Thaddeus Pellegrin,
yeah.
James Buquet Sr.
Yeah.
J.J. Munson, you heard of Munson Slip. Claude Duval, A. Dupree Veith, that's the only one I didn't recognize. Alvin Boudreau, Louis E. Routier, Gibson J. Otan Sr., Thomas B. Holcomb Sr., and Captain Ovid J. Sinak. His picture's in the upper right-hand corner because he couldn't make that meeting. But these guys had the vision and the wherewithal to know that if we dug this thing straight to the Gulf of Mexico, it would totally change our economy, and it did.
Oh yeah,
these guys really had the had it down, and they knew what they were doing. So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, all of us grew up, our fathers and all that worked for Delta and worked for Gulf Island, worked for
Chromalloy and all that.
Yeah. So those all names that we all know.
That's right. It all started in that time.
And so that all came from that area and all located right there off of that canal. So yeah, it's a big time.
So the next slide shows the names of all the companies and businesses. I'd love to read them all, but it's 88 of them, 100 of them. And so I will just say that these guys put their own money, and I figured out each one of them put in about $400 to $450 in 1962.
That's a big deal.
That's a lot of money, So, anyway, so let's go to the next slide. So this is kind of interesting. Terrebonne Bay's diameter grew from a few miles in 1937. Okay, and I had a study from that time, and it said it was 2 miles. Okay. It was 7 miles in diameter when the channel was originally constructed in 1962, and today it's over 10, okay? The larger the bay diameter gets, the more maintenance dredging costs we have, because that's where we dredge. It's not past the land.
Right, everybody thinks it's closer to the bridges,
Yeah,
it's
no,
way out there.
It's way out there in the bay. It's almost in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
It's really,
it seems like it, right, because there's not a whole lot of open land for like 6 miles.
So let's go ahead and get into the 1960 through 1980, okay? Industry worked inshore and on the continental shelf in the Gulf of Mexico, less than 1,000 feet of water. The Corps' annual budgets was plus or minus $1 million, okay? And they dredged every other year because it wasn't enough to dredge. And, just one budget wasn't enough to dredge, so they had to wait 2 years. But there were no complaints by industry because the draft demands were less than the Terrebonne Bay depth, which was minus 12, okay? That's what the depth of the bay is.
Different boats.
That's the controlling depth. So when we dug the channel, for 36 miles, the first 26 miles, got to Cocodrie, and then from there it went out into the Gulf, and that's where all the sediment stays, and it goes east to west. It doesn't come north to south. So, and also that for those 2 decades, it was negatively impacted by 5 hurricanes and 2 tropical storms. So that's 2 decades, 5 hurricanes and 2 tropical storms.
That's every other year now.
Yeah, and so, but it's very, very important. No matter where they hit, they silt the channel in. Okay.
So one of the big reasons you need to dredge is because we have different vehicles coming up that canal.
Exactly, and the next slide will show it. Okay, so these are just kind of a overall view of the vessels, and if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, that's the 1960s. The top red line is the depth of Terrebonne Bay, which is minus 12. The second red line is minus 15, which is the authorized depth of the channel. And the last red line is minus 20, which is the new authorized depth that we have. That's what we're doing all this,
Right.
this pipeline lowering and all. And these are the vessel sizes. And as you can see, you know, in the 80s, they started getting deeper than the bay. Okay, so we had to dredge every year. The 90s is even worse, and today it's, I mean, you know, you could probably go down another 2 or 3 feet on this vessel because that's about what they draw.
Right, and that also reflects where these oil companies and they're going further offshore.
Right.
They're doing more deep water, that
And they
kind of
need
stuff.
bigger
Bigger
vessels.
boats. They handle bigger cables, right? Because
Exactly.
they got to tie down these big ships or
And
these.
equipment, everything. And not only that, but the seas, the weather. You can't go out there with a 180-foot boat, not as far as they go. They need 300-footers, you know, and bigger. And that's why they draw more water.
Yeah, and so it's been amazing. It's been good. You see things like I say, like Schwess and different people that have also had. They build these ships, so that's been an economic boom for our area too. But that's one of the big reasons those boats don't fit going down the canal.
So now we have to dredge every year, and it's all in the bay.
All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going public right after this.
A new company with a lot of history. GIS Engineering has rapidly grown its brand around an experienced team of professionals. GIS Engineering is a full-service planning, engineering, procurement, and construction management company specializing in coastal protection and restoration, upstream and downstream industrial, and transportation infrastructure projects. Putting people first, GIS Engineering, a new company with a lot of history.
In South Louisiana, storms are a way of life. Every storm poses a different threat, whether from flooding or hurricane-force winds. At All South Consulting Engineers, we help protect our people from these disasters. Before a storm, we work with our leaders to prevent catastrophic damage. After the storm, we help get the resources needed for rebuilding. We have helped our cities, parishes, and school boards recover over $2 billion to rebuild our community. We'll be here for the next one.
Led by a 7-member commission, the Terrebonne Port was created to assist our local industry in promoting economic development. We monitor government regulations that affect our local industry and work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to secure maintenance dredging funds. Because the HNC is the main artery for the heartbeat of Terrebonne's economy, Terrebonne Port fights a constant battle for funding to maintain the federally authorized navigable depth. We are now leasing waterfront and non-waterfront property. Terrebonne Port Commission, serving our industry to keep Terrebonne thriving.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Going Public. Harry McCullough here. It was 140 years ago. They dredged the Houma Navigational Canal, and that's when the Terrebonne Port...
60 years ago.
Did I say 140?
Yeah.
I meant 60.
60, that's right.
I meant 140 after the birth of Terrebonne, but yeah.
Yes.
So 60 years ago, in 1962, they finished the canal, and that's what we're going through is the difference of vehicles and the difference that it's made and with the port has kind of evolved over the years. Of course, David Ravelet is the executive director of the Terrebonne Port Commission. So we appreciate you walking us through this. We're going to go now from the 1980s to the 1990s.
Yes. So, get that slide up. Okay, so in the early 80s, a recession hit. Everybody remembers that. It bankrupted a lot of companies. A lot of labor left and never came back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The word of the decade was diversification. Everybody needed to diversify because we were 100% oil field back then. By the mid-80s, drilling moves into deeper water depths and the demand for deeper draft vessels began. Now, greater than the Terrebonne Bay's natural depth of 12 feet is the draft demand, and You know, we just recently got it authorized to 20 feet, but we're not there yet because we got at least 3 years of lowering pipelines and that sort of stuff before we can even start dredging it. So annual maintenance dredging now required every year, annual. So Corps budgets one enough. 2 hurricanes in 1985. That was it, this whole decade. That way anything significant was just those 2.
Hurricane Juan, 1985.
85, and I think maybe...
that might have hit us a couple times.
Yeah. It's true. Huh?
Went back and
I better
forth.
go back and count.
But Dave, as we go down and we're still talking about it, we're talking about the bigger boats. I still see those bigger boats. Now
Yeah.
are there's even bigger ones to come, or do they drag the bottom when they?
They
when they're
drag the
going
bottom. A lot of them don't come in after. Schwest has a lot of them, and they light ship them. They take everything out, all
I
the
got you.
fluids and everything, and they get them up the canal, and they do repairs on them, and then and they float them back to a deeper area, and then they refill them. And
I got you.
so you light ship them to get them
But
in.
that's all expenses on those companies, right?
I mean, it's a lot. You know, they've had times when they've attached a dry dock to the back and the front of the boat.
lift it
Raise
up.
the dry dock and then sail them out. Man, that's cost a few million to do that.
Right.
But anyway, Terrebonne's niche. Each port area on the South Louisiana has their own niche, and ours is steel and aluminum repair and fabrication for all industries: the oil and gas industry, the marine offshore industry, all the government vessels for the Corps, for the Coast Guard, and they even build stuff for civil engineering like bridge girders and stuff like that. So it doesn't matter what industry we're fabricating for. We're fabricators. So when they talk about all this green energy and all these windmills they want to put in the Gulf of Mexico, they're going to need us bad.
We can do that,
and
right?
we can
Yeah.
do that. And I've been talking to a lot of people. It's pretty hot and heavy. A lot of people are positioning themselves to come in here and do this. Okay, so they isolated a few areas in the Gulf where they're going to put these things, and it's going to be it's a ways off, but it could be in another couple of years. We could have a windmill farm out there.
Sure.
Or started.
And like I say, we have specialized and not only the companies, but the welders and the tackers and
Everything,
everything. Those guys are here and know what they're doing. We could build those platforms that they put the wind on. They could build the propellers that were here. Those will all be great. And then, if you have a big natural, gas or, one of those, they're talking about putting them, outside of Venice.
About liquid natural gas.
Yeah,
yes.
liquefied natural, LNG.
Right.
Liquefied natural gas. There's one that might be in Venice, another one might be in Calcasieu, maybe have something like that in Fouchon. Those can all be something we can build and then ship.
And they will have stuff. Fouchon is planning to have a more of a refueling liquid natural gas, not like the big liquid natural gas plants in Lake Charles and all. They do a whole lot, and they ship it overseas and that sort of stuff.
I mean, and it's so important right now. Look what's happening right now in Ukraine.
That's right.
And part of it is because of energy and what Russia supplies for Europe.
How important is it to be energy independent?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's go to the next slide. 1990 through 2010, deepwater industry increasing and the shelf work was decreasing. Okay, oil and gas fabrication began decreasing and replaced by fabrication for other industries. That's the diversification
we were talking about.
They, like I said, they do a lot of marine fabrication and repair for a lot of government agencies that have vessels. NOAA, these research vessels, the Coast Guard, the Corps. So there's a lot of that going on. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew hit. 2001, Tropical Storm Allison. 2002, Tropical Storm Isidore. 2002, Hurricane Lily. 2003, Tropical Storm Bill. 2004, Hurricane Ivan. 2005, Hurricane Katrina. 2005, Hurricane Rita. And 2005, Hurricane Cindy, which a lot of us don't even remember.
Yeah.
In 2008, Hurricane Gustav and Hurricane Ike. So we had our hands full that year.
Well, and
That
it just
decade
shows you,
yeah.
You might not believe the climate's changing, but
Well, look, if you
these storms have.
Yeah, but if you go back and you look at history, especially on the western side of the Gulf of Mexico, if you go, NOAA has a deal where they researched it all, and they've had years where 2 hurricanes hit Houston, and almost 2 or 3 years in a row get hit by
Right.
Category 4s and
Right.
Category
Right.
3s. So we just had a long period where we
Right.
didn't have nothing.
Yeah, something changed.
And now it's back. So
Right.
anyway, so let's go to
Send it back over to
2000.
Houston.
Yeah, let's go to 2010. Is that the next one?
Yeah, 2010 to the present.
All right. So we had the BP oil spill. That's how we started the decade, okay? And then during the Obama administration, Terrebonne Parish contributed $3 million, and the port contributed $500,000 to supplement the Corps' budget to keep industry alive, because at that time we were still just getting $1 million
Right.
a year, and we couldn't do it. When Trump got elected in 2016, Corps budgets were increased. Okay. Today we're wrapping up the dredging cycle for 2022. We just finished it in March, let's see, dredging cycle 21 interrupted. Yeah, so 21 it was interrupted by Hurricane Ida. They had just started. They had a demob, then they came back in, and they just finished in March for 22. But it was really 21. It says 21 and 22 combined.
Right.
Okay. The channel starts silting in the day after the dredge leaves, okay? The Corps dredges the bay to a depth of 20 feet, 15 feet plus a 5-foot advanced maintenance, and it starts silting in right away. Sometimes within 6 months, you know, we're looking at needing to dredge again.
Right.
You know?
So the wind direction, does that make a big difference?
Yeah, so I have this average wind direction, and this is for a year. And if you look, if you look at it and you average it out, it's blowing east-west, okay?
Right.
And that's where all the sediment comes. It passes across the ditch we have in the bay, and it falls in the bay. Falls in the channel, and so it's really a sediment trap. And that's why we need a rock jetty.
Right.
On the
Western side?
east side of the channel, but the west side of Timberlair.
Right.
Okay. So we go to 2000. Well, let's see. We just did 2010 to present. Oh, we got to do that. Let's do that one. All right. So some years the authorized depth of the 15 feet is lost within 6 months. A barrier or a rock jetty is needed to block the westward migration of Timberlair Island, thus preventing the island from falling into the channel. CPRA can't assist industry because that department's funding is dedicated to coastal restoration only. CPRA can only restore Timberlair Island with these funds. A request was made to CPRA to include a 2-mile rock jetty adjacent to the island in the restoration design of the island. This would keep it from falling in the channel. Although they agreed it would help, funding was not available.
So you're looking at a sediment trap that would help
Yeah.
block some of that, right?
So if you go to the next slide, and it's
There you
a
go.
little difficult to see, but that is the tail
red
end,
part, right.
well, the colored part in the middle, that's the tail end of the Home and Navigation Canal as it goes into the Gulf of Mexico. You can see the island is to the right, okay, and that red line is where we think a rock jetty would be placed, okay, a 2-mile jetty to capture this from falling in, and it's just drawn on the map. No study was done to say that's exactly where we need it. We got to do a model of the whole bay before we can determine that.
Right.
But if you look at the trail of the channel, and you look on the east side of the channel, you see some pink coming into it, and that's 12 foot deep.
I got you.
Okay, so that's where the bay is self-leveling. The island's going into the bay, so the Corps curves the channel a little bit to the west because the water's deeper,
And it's easier.
And that's why we got a
Dredge.
curve in it, and they've curved it 5 times.
Right.
They can't really curve it anymore. So, and they agree that we got an issue here, and we got to resolve it. I believe that the rock jetty will be the thing for us to do. So look, we're running out of time, so I want you to go to the second to last slide, or the last slide, the omnibus bill. That's it right there. Okay. So remember I told you earlier that Garrett
Right.
and Scalise were able to get us some money. Well, in the president's budget every year, we have 2 line items. We had 2 line items this year, O&M, which we always have, but we also got $3.3 million for damage repairs, okay, from the hurricane, okay? But then if you look under that, in the red, it's $350,000, and the title of it is Investigation, Congressionally Directed Spending, Representative Graves. That is gonna open Pandora's box for us to start the design of the channel, okay? They won't do anything, the Corps won't do anything until they get this funding, okay? And now they got it. The project manager is going to come to our office next week, next week to announce, and so is Garrett's office will be here. I don't think Garrett's coming, but his chief of staff, Paul Sawyer, will be here. And we're going to, announce it to the commission. So we're happy. It's good.
That's awesome. David Ravelli looked at the past and maybe the future with this bill.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That's great. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
That'll do it for this edition of Going Public. See you next time, everybody.